everyone. My guest today is Zolal Habibi. Zolal is an Iranian human rights activist and a prominent voice for justice, democracy, and women's rights in Iran. She serves on the Foreign Affairs Committee of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, or NCRI, where she advocates globally for a free, secular, and democratic Iran. With over 2 decades of dedicated activism, she has become a fierce advocate on behalf of the voiceless inside Iran, regularly appearing in international forums, human rights conferences, and live broadcasts across major media platforms. Zolal's activism began in her teens, profoundly shaped by the loss of her father, a respected Iranian writer and political dissident who was killed by the regime during the 1988 massacre. This personal tragedy ignited a lifelong commitment to ensuring that no other family suffers such loss and that the voices of Iran's political prisoners, dissidents, and freedom seekers are heard on the world stage. Her work has directly contributed to securing international recognition of the 1988 massacre as a crime against humanity and the safe relocation of 3,000 at-risk dissidents from Iraq, demonstrating her ability to translate advocacy into tangible, life-saving outcomes. Welcome to the show, Zolal. I want to thank you for being here today. I'm really excited for this show. So I'm wondering if you could tell the audience a little bit about you and what you're working on.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to join you, and I'd like to also greet those who are tuning in and watching this podcast. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Zolal, and I am a activist with the Iranian Resistance. I am a member of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, which is a parliament in exile, dedicated to bring about democratic change to Iran. We stand for a democratic, secular republic in Iran, and that is what we are aiming for and working towards. I have been an activist practically since childhood,
Yeah.
but I remember like going to Congress at the age of 12. Um, that was the first time I got like my first signature from a member of Congress. But I have been active um, from childhood in regards to the human rights situation, especially in particular because of, I guess, my family background. My father was a prominent writer and a human rights activist, but unfortunately, he was killed by the regime when I was 7 in the summer of 1988. That summer, the Iranian regime had over 30,000 political prisoners executed in just 5-6 weeks. And right now, a lot of, you know, those analyzing the situation right now in Iran these days are saying this is unprecedented what we're seeing since then, since
Yeah.
1988 and the atrocities that were perpetrated then. So there are a lot of parallels right now. But so I became acquainted with the human rights situation in Iran when I was probably like 4 or 5. But then
Mhm.
when I was 7, I realized that the Iranian regime sees no borders when it comes to its brutalities and its um, executions and killings. Um,
Yeah.
and fast forward to today, I've been a member of the Iranian Resistance for 26 years.
Yeah. And is this dangerous? I'm I'm assuming this is dangerous for you to be
Um,
doing any of this.
I mean, there's always risks and everything, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
of course, when you decide to join a resistance movement, and that's a resistance movement that 120,000 people have been killed by the Iranian regime for supporting this movement. And
Mhm.
it has been the main target of Iran's even terrorism abroad and internally. So yes, unfortunately, being affiliated with this movement is punishable by death, according to the regime. And they have gone to great extents to actually eliminate this movement throughout the years. I mean, even here on European soil or, you know,
Yeah.
outside of Iran. So this is the reality is that the Iranian regime fears no one more than
Mhm.
this resistance because it knows that it's the only actual alternative to be able to bring about change and also
Yeah.
to be able to guarantee or safeguard a democratic system, a democratic republic in Iran. And especially since we are a force that, like for instance, one of the main organizations that's a member of the NCRI, which I belong to, MEK is Muslim, like I
Hmm.
mean, in their views and whatnot, but they promote a secular government, so separation of religion and state. So for
Yeah.
the regime, that's like, you know, uh, it's a killer for them because they promote they try to say that this is Islam and we're standing in front of them. We're saying everything
Uh,
that you're doing is opposed to religion, has nothing to do with it. And even if it did, I mean, religion needs to be separate from uh,
yeah.
state because it should be a personal decision for people. It shouldn't have, and it shouldn't be dictating to people how to live or what not to do or do. It's a personal choice for anyone. And so from day one, that's actually where we came to clashes with Khomeini because from day one, we said the revolution was for democracy and freedom and not for religion. And that's why they call us hypocrites, because they say, you stand against me. But the reality is that I think that's really important for Iran to have a force who understands all the, cultural background and the history and everything, but also is able to make that differentiation and just be like, look, religion should have no part in governance.
Yeah.
And, that is something that the people of Iran really need in these times. And so I think it's really important to be promoting, a secular democratic republic for Iran,
Hmm.
because so it's putting behind all forms of tyranny, be it religious, be it monarchy, or whatever. We need to put aside those past dictatorships to be able to move forward to a true democracy where there's, people's
Hmm.
sovereignty.
Yeah. So the news here in the United States, it sounds like you guys could really accomplish this. Like this might be the time. Is that an accurate assessment?
Assessment. No.
Yeah.
The reality is that if you look at the last 10 years in Iran,
Hmm.
from 2017 till now, we have
Hmm.
seen some major uprisings. So this is the fourth major uprising since 2017 in
Okay.
Iran. Each time you could see it evolve. It's like, step by
Yeah.
step, you could see that, process. And I think it's really important to understand that um, we are dealing with a very brutal regime that
Hmm.
has been able to keep its power through suppression for 47 years. So it's uh, it's really the best at these tactics. So it knows what it's doing. But despite that, the people every time they're able to overcome and come back to the streets. So I think from 2019, but especially since 2022, the Iranian regime has well understood that this Iran is like a big powder keg that the smallest spark can, make it explode. And that is what we're seeing, this time
Yeah.
bomb going off. And this time it was the 28th of December. It started with a strike by the Bazaar, which is like the backbone of Iran's economy. So it's kind
Okay.
of like, I guess, in comparison, it would be like the Wall Street of Iran.
Okay.
And so it plays an important significance in our society, but also it
Yeah.
has a historic significance too, because, like for instance, back in 1979, the point when the Bazaar joined the revolution, everyone was like, "This is a revolution. It's going to continue." So it's because they
Yeah.
have the economy in their hands, right? So it
Yeah.
started with the fact that the value of Iran's currency has plummeted. Like it's it's worthless right now, and so
Yeah.
it started with that, and then with it started like a whole wave of problems and issues in society. Unfortunately, right now we've reached a point that people can't afford even bread.
Yeah.
People when they go to buy something at a grocery store, they have to calculate, like, if I come back in 2 hours, is it going to be more expensive or should I buy it an hour later? And
Yeah.
in a country that's so rich in natural resources, and this it's never been this way, that I mean, people are really living under the line of poverty, and
Yeah.
there's no, you know, so the regime has no solutions for the current state. But
Mhm.
it's not only even the economical factor. There's the suppression, of course, which has always been there, but also like
Yeah.
every aspect of life that you look at, there's not a single place that you could put your finger on that has not been destroyed completely from by this regime. Be it the, environment.
Mhm.
Tehran is like one of the most polluted cities right now in the world. 2 months ago, Pezeshkian, who's the current so-called president of the regime, announced that due to water shortage, we'll probably have to evacuate Tehran, which is the capital and the
Oh.
largest city. So, I mean, the whole
Yeah.
system is falling apart, really. So, from every aspect and angle that you look at it. Um, when the bazaar came to start at the strike, what was important was immediately within the next day, the
Mhm.
students in different universities joined in, and then it spread really quick to all sectors of life and society.
Yeah.
And so you saw that unison in between the people. I mean, the
Yeah.
messaging, different, as I said, different parts of society joining in together. You saw generations standing next to each other, like four generations coming together in these protests. But you also saw, like, for
Yeah.
instance, the presence of different ethnicities, because it grew within a short time to 220 cities and 31 provinces of Iran. So it
Wow.
really spread really fast. On the other hand, their slogans, it went from within the first 2 hours, the slogans were down with the dictator, down with Khamenei, and then,
Uh-huh.
like, for instance, down with the oppressor, be it the Shah or the mullahs, and things like that, or like Khamenei, this is the final year, this is the year of your overthrow, due to the
Yeah.
bloodshed. So these messages of defiance that you hear from people, and the fact that they have a clear outlook that where where the final goal is, what their target
Yeah.
is to overthrow this regime in its entirety. It's not like in previous protests. Every time the regime was able to, I mean, they would suppress, but they would also be able to, like, give something to be able to just calm society down a bit.
Okay. Okay.
Just given, like, for instance, stop the morality police for a few months, or do this
Mhm.
or that. Somehow, just down, you know, downgrade that level of tense situation that you saw in society.
Yeah.
But this time, they
Yeah.
really can't do that. They don't have no means of doing that. And so the regime has really reached a point of no return. But
Mhm.
also the fact that the regime has turned to such brutalities. I mean, crimes against humanity and war crimes are being perpetrated in Iran right now in the past few weeks.
Yeah.
That is not something that the people of Iran are going to forgive or forget. And so it's going to,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people. What is very interesting is today there was some minor connections, like people were able to connect for a few minutes in some
Oh, really?
places on the
Yeah.
internet. Today is day 14 of the nation, the nationwide internet uh, uh, yeah, lockdown.
Blackout? Yeah.
Yeah, the blackout. But
Yeah.
the reality is that those messages that we are getting, everyone's like, yes, the situation is devastating. It was a bloodbath. They killed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in every city and street.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people saw, like, personally, they're like, I personally saw 100 bodies around me. I personally saw
Yeah.
a 14-year-old child be killed. I personally saw
Mhm.
them targeting people's faces directly. I mean, the things that are coming out is very um, devastating. But
Yeah.
they also give one message. They're like, don't think it's stopped.
Yeah.
Even though the internet
Good.
has been cut off, people, I mean, we can't protest like the way we were, because there is a martial law situation right now throughout the country. but there are a lot of like clashes right now. So
Okay.
especially this, I think the Gen Z of Iran is really shining through here.
Yeah.
This, rebellious youth and the
Hmm.
resistance units who are organizing on the ground. And one of the things that I think one of the main characteristics that everyone saw was you could feel the organized network working on the ground in these protests. You could see it in a lot of the videos, like how they support one
Yeah.
another, how they're careful, like if someone gets arrested, try to have them released. If someone is being targeted, tell them move, whatever. And you could
Yeah.
see that organizational structure on the ground, which has been something that the resistance has been working on for like over 10 years now, 12 years. And you could see that unfold, on the ground. And the
Hmm.
other thing is that you saw this defiance, this people who really, this resilience that's really unprecedented. The fact that
Yeah.
they were on the offensive, they were disarming, the suppressive forces, forcing them to, you know, um, surrender and things like that. So these are they because they understood like, hey, if we just stand and just try to protect ourselves, they're the
Yeah.
ones who are on the
Yeah.
offensive. So they're going to, just kill us all. So we need to be on the offensive and we need to push them back. And I think that is what we saw in a lot of cities. And that's why, like, for instance, there were a lot of cities that, at least for a few hours, if not days, it was in the control of the
Yeah.
people and they were able to push back the suppressive forces. And that is what the regime feared the most because the Iranian regime knows very well that the only force that has the capability and the capacity to overthrow it is the Iranian people and their resistance,
Hmm.
organized resistance. It's not foreign intervention or anything like that. Because, I mean, Iran, if you look at it, even if you look at it like the geopolitics of this,
Yeah.
the Middle East, but also geographically, if you look at it, I mean, the terrain, everything, it's very different from other countries in the region. First of all, it's like 3 times the size of Iraq with 4 times the
Hmm.
population. It's not the same scenario, it's not the same situation. It has a history that the people are not very um, keen on foreign intervention because unfortunately, if you look at the last 100 years, um,
Yeah.
Reza Khan, he was brought in by the British and then he was taken out, and then his son was brought in by the US and then he was taken out. And then Khomeini was brought in by the West because it was the Cold War era then. And they
Hmm.
figured, hey, if we have someone who's a fundamentalist, he's going to stand in front of the USSR. And unfortunately, our people have been paying the price for that for 47
Yeah.
years now. So, unfortunately, the people of Iran have been fighting for freedom for like 120 years now,
Yeah.
but every time they succeed, it's very short-lived because of that foreign intervention. So, like we had the 1906 constitutional revolution, and then
Hmm.
Reza Khan was brought in, and then we had Dr. Mossadegh, who was the only democratic government that we've had,
Yeah.
and nationalizing Iran's oil, which was a threat for the West, because they had interests in Iran's
Yeah.
oil
Yeah.
fields. So he was taken out with a coup d'état, and you know, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was reinstated, and then the Savak and everything began. So we've had all those experiences, so that people really understand that we have to take our destiny into our own hands because no one is going to care about Iran out of just the goodness of their hearts to come and do something for us. We need to do this. We need to create that change ourselves so we can actually direct it in the direction that we want and not
Yeah.
be forced to say, well, we owe them, so we have to do whatever they ask us to do.
Right.
And I think
Right.
that's really important. And that is what we're seeing right now. We have a saying in Farsi, we say, no one's going to scratch your back except your own finger. So
Yeah.
this is the situation. And today, a lot of people are saying, look, we, unfortunately, when you look at those who've been killed, there have been thousands and thousands who have been killed. The Iranian resistance has been able to verify about 3,000, over 3,000 people who've been killed,
Oh,
and over 50,000 people who have been arrested, and
oh my
thousands and
gosh.
thousands who are wounded right now. Unfortunately, the wounded, for the most part, they are being held in their homes, because if they go to the hospital, they will be, I mean, we've seen the scenes that they go into the hospitals and just kill those who are
Yeah.
wounded, or they go into the hospital, they arrest them and take them to prison. So a lot of families, just to safeguard their children, they're keeping them at home, even though they don't have the means to really attend to these wounds, because it's live gunshots, and
Yeah.
whatnot. So it's a very critical situation right now. But the people are really, they're saying, look, if you look at those who have been killed, they're mostly like teens, early 20s. They're like,
Yeah.
this is our future generation who's been
Yeah.
killed. We're not going to step back now, because if we step back, it just gives the green light to the regime. Okay, next time, increase the brutality and you're set. You will stay in
Yeah.
power. We need to make sure that we continue, even though we know no one's going to hand us freedom in a silver platter, and we know that we have to pay the price. And that is, I think, that defiance that we're seeing in that resolve. A lot of people were saying we've never seen so much hope in people's eyes, even despite
Yeah.
the killings and brutalities inside of the country. But it's very moving to see a lot of these people, before going to the protests, they said their final farewells to their families, or a lot of them, they did like videos or whatever, just to say their final goodbyes, their final messages, because they understood the risk that they're taking, but they still took that
Yeah.
risk and they still came to the streets. And I think that it's something that has formed through these
Hmm.
47 years. I mean, the Iranian people have seen that kind of dedication, the 120,000 people who have sacrificed their lives for freedom in Iran. And they've reached a point that they're like, we can't let those lives be lost in vain. We need to continue it until we actually reach that final destination point, which is freedom. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, because otherwise this regime is never going to stop. Just last year, in 2025, there were over 2,200 executions in Iran. And just in the last month, 345 people have been executed. Despite, this is aside from those who are being killed in the streets and those who are
Hmm.
being targeted. So this is how this regime is able to actually stay afloat.
Yeah. This is so sad, so sad. Like I'm like getting emotional learning about this because I don't think that. I mean, you hear it on the news. I've heard of the deaths, but like actually hearing about it from you just makes it more real. And I feel like there's an image or a video of a woman with her hair out, and she's burning a photo of one of the regime
Khamenei.
leaders. Okay, and we're seeing that on this side, and people say, well, she could get killed for that, and but like I don't know if the connection's actually being made, because we have people here in the United States protesting stuff that looks so stupid and trivial compared to the protests going on in Iran.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to tell you about my sponsors real quick. Sometimes I get on a roll cleaning or gardening, and I need a boost but don't have time for a meal. Big Fork Brand's pork jerky is the perfect choice to keep my momentum, offering high-protein snacks for on-the-go energy boosts. Not only do they offer pork jerky, but they also make pork sticks, bacon sausage, bacon hot dogs, and burger and hot dog sauces. Products come in a variety of delicious flavors, including Thai green curry and maple and brown sugar for the meat options, and gangster and Chicago fire for the sauces. I personally think the original flavor of the pork jerky hits just right after tackling a big chore. It's a little salty and very flavorful. My discount code gives you 20% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit bigforkbrands.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. Are you looking for a gift for a music lover, or maybe some apparel to show off your quirky side? Old Glory has you covered. With over 300,000 officially licensed items covering music, sports, entertainment, and pop culture, you're guaranteed to find the perfect item. They even have seasonal gear. My husband enjoys the Beatles and Led Zeppelin apparel, and I love the Billy Idol apparel. I even found items for my fellow plant enthusiasts. This family-owned superstore is known for their quality and customer service, offers free standard shipping on all orders, and orders are shipped the same day you purchase. My discount code gives you 15% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit oldglory.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's J-A-D-E, at checkout. Looking for a game-changing way to improve your health? Zevo Life is the world's most nutrient-dense whole plant, packed with over 50% plant protein, essential amino acids, fiber, and antioxidants. Harnessing the best nature has to offer, Zevo Life nourishes your body while driving your performance, vitality, and overall well-being. Each serving is a concentrated source of clean, well-balanced nutrition designed to support modern lifestyles, and just 1 teaspoon a day supports your gut, boosts energy, and promotes healthier skin and hair. It's no wonder that it's receiving rave 5-star reviews. Step into a healthier future with a 30% discount and a 30-day risk-free guarantee by visiting zivo.life and using my promo code. To support my show and to receive 30% off your entire order, enter in my promo code JADE, that's J-A-D-E, at checkout. Has the United States been helpful with anything? Like, I know Elon Musk was trying to get Starlink to Iran, and I know President Trump had threatened to strike Iran if they hang, what was it, like 800 protesters. Has that helped at all, or is it really making a difference?
Well, I think that we need to be realistic about what can and can't be done.
Yeah.
The reality is that President Trump did threaten the regime that if you kill people in the protest, I will react.
Yeah.
The regime did kill people, but there was words of condemnation from the world, but there isn't any reaction.
Yeah.
But we also have to understand it's not like we're looking for intervention, but I think that a strong stance could really be very helpful.
Right.
And that is still something that we need to see. Unfortunately, I think a lot of countries are just making their own calculations. What's to their benefit, short term, long term, whatever. And so we're seeing that really in that the regime reads between the lines. It gets its signals. So do we. I think that on Monday, there was as you know, right now, it's the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Yeah.
They actually invited Araghchi, who is the foreign minister of the regime, to come and speak. Well, despite the fact that, it was, at that point, it was, I don't know, day 10 of the internet. Being disconnected, all forms of communication being disconnected, really. It was after the world was seeing, these body bags, on the ground, the scenes of, how brutally people have been killed. We have a 6-minute video. It's it's not different videos stuck together. It's just one 6-minute video. It's from Tehran Pars. And you could hear in it 264, I think, bullets being fired.
Oh my God.
In 6 minutes. So this is the kind of, bloodbath the regime started. But despite that, he's welcome to come and speak at the World Economic Forum. And what are they discussing in World Economic Forum? Okay, our economic relations continuation. So it's the message is you could kill if you're able to, keep yourself afloat. We'll still do business with you. So that's the green light. Right now, and the European Parliament has been pushing. The reality is they've been pushing for this a few years now, but the European Parliament is pushing for the IRGC to be placed on the terrorist list in Europe, and also like in the UK, the members of Parliament are pushing for this, and it's not happening. So right now, the president of the European Parliament, she's been making a lot of statements in this regard. In the past few days, there was a session on Iran just on Wednesday and addressing this issue. But the thing is that there are at least 3 countries who are preventing it. And so why are you dragging your feet on this? It's clear. One of the countries is because of they're the number one country in economic ties with Iran. The second, the other country, one of them is, at least to the extent of my understanding, it's because they fear the regime, because they have hostages in Iran right now.
Yeah.
They have been targeted for terrorist plots by the regime in the past. So they're just afraid of Iran's retaliation. And
Yeah.
well, in the meantime, the message that you're giving to the Iranian regime is that you can, we are, you could pressure us this way. So the
Yeah.
hostage diplomacy is effective, right?
Yeah.
So our terrorist acts are effective, and we could put you in your place, and we could continue doing what we're doing. So that is the message that unfortunately the regime is receiving. It's not a message of decisiveness. What they're seeing is like, yeah, they're like, yeah, I know it's diplomacy. So you guys make, statements of condemnation, but at the end of the day, you're not going to do anything. We know it, you know it. So let's,
Yeah.
go on with business as usual. And unfortunately, that is the message that the international community is giving. But I think
Yeah.
one thing that the world can do, because I think there's a very sensitive balance here, because I understand that a lot of people in the public, they're like, okay, it's either this or that. But there's a third option here. So a lot of people say, well, it's either foreign intervention, so it means like military intervention, war, troops on the ground, whatnot, or it's policy of appeasement, diplomacy and whatever, to try to come to terms with this regime. Well,
Yeah.
our message is there is a third option. You're not stuck between these two. Mrs. Rajavi, she's the president-elect of the Iranian Resistance. For 20 years ago, not just today, 20 years ago, she said at the European Parliament, she said, well, there's a third option on Iran. It's neither war nor appeasement. It's supporting the Iranian people and their resistance to be able to create change. And what does that support look like? It's very simple things. First of all, hold the regime accountable for its crimes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in the past 4 decades, we've seen the policy of appeasement toward the regime. But who has been used as the bargaining chip at the table every single time? It's the people of Iran, and it's specifically the Iranian resistance that is used as a bargaining chip. So in reality, that has extended the lifeline of the regime, but it has also created so many barriers as obstacles in front of the people of Iran in their fight against the regime. Recognize the people's right to resist. I mean, if you look at a lot of these statements, they will say, we support the peaceful protesters standing in front of the brutalities of the regime. So if these people actually defend themselves in front of this regime, you don't support them anymore. Why do you have to use that term there? Just say we stand by the people of Iran, as they're being killed by the regime. So these are like, it's very, I mean, it might not catch, you might not catch it, but it's there, and it's, it has its effect. The reality is that the Iranian regime has been able to really pressure the international community, or just deceive them, or also, as I said, because of foreign interests, because Iran is a rich country in oil, they have been able to negotiate a lot of things and to be able to get a lot of things that way. Another thing that the international community can do, like you just mentioned, the communication, but I think that look, it's 14 days and people don't have that communication. People are going to crossing the border, going to another country to just make a phone call, and just to tell their families and loved ones that we're okay, because you can't make a phone call inside of the country. So in these circumstances, I think the international community could have done something to provide the communication for the people of Iran. But it was said that we will do it or whatnot, but nothing was done. We're seeing it as 14 days. It's not 1 or 2 days. You might say it might take a few days, but that's not the case. And I think that that is what Iranians are looking for when they say a firm policy on Iran, hold the regime accountable. Like, for instance, what happened in the hospitals, the fact that they raided the hospitals and killed people in the hospital, that is considered a war crime. So it Khamenei can be taken to the Security Council and could be, held accountable for that.
Yeah.
But it's not happening. Or like, for instance, one of the things that they're doing now is, from the reports that we're receiving, they've gone into all the hospitals and collected all the blood banks that they have, so they won't be able to use blood for transfusions for those who are wounded. So people are like smuggling in blood now into the hospitals for some of the people who are wounded. So I mean, these are things that are, the international community can do something about it, but it's not being done. So that's that's what's important. I think that the Iranian resistance has set forth, the outline of, what can be done and what needs to be done, but unfortunately it's falling on deaf ears. Maybe not because they don't want to hear it. I mean, not that they don't hear it, they just don't want to hear it. That's more the case. But I think that more and more the world is starting to realize that, look, this movement, first of all, the movement that the National Council of Resistance of Iran was the one who revealed Iran's nuclear program for the first time in 2002. If they hadn't, Iran would have had a nuclear weapon now. And just imagine what a regime that kills its own people this way, what would they do if they had a nuclear weapon? So they've really helped the international community, but unfortunately, you don't see that replicated, and I think that's something that we see. But I think that right now, the people of Iran, they have a clear direction, and they're just moving forward in that direction. Unfortunately, there are a lot of diversions and manipulation and messages that are being really just, narratives that are being fed, and especially in the media and using social media. The reality is social media has a positive effect, but it can also have the negative effect too, because of all the disinformation that's circulating too. Even though it is a very important tool for people on the ground inside of the country, and also for the world to understand what is happening. Because just imagine, these things happen. Everything that is happening today, they all happened in the 1980s, but no one heard about it. Now we're seeing it. So I think that's the role that social media and the internet is playing, and that's why the regime cuts it off to be able to kill. But I think that we also have to be aware of how it is being manipulated, how it's being used, and how these different narratives are being pushed. Like, for instance, one of the narratives that the regime is feeding is, if I fall, there's going to be chaos and civil war in Iran, because there are these different ethnicities, there are these different groups, and that's going to happen. But the reality, that's not the truth in Iran. I mean, just the fact that all 31 provinces joined the protest, just the fact that, with one message, just the fact that we have a history of 5,000 years of these ethnicities living side by side. We've never had a civil war in Iran. So that's really not the truth, but it's being twisted that way and it's being presented that way. So if you don't want to see chaos, you need to keep me in power, but that's not the reality. I think Iran has the #1 brain drain in the world. Just imagine if all of the Iranian people could actually serve their own people. Iran can flourish and become like a major, role player in the world, and it could be a stabilizing force for once. Unfortunately, right now, Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. So it's the destabilizing force in the Middle East. If you actually want to see stability in the Middle East, which would also, have its ripple effect on the world right now, well, this regime needs to go, because it's, look at all the proxy groups that this regime has. Look at, how it has fueled the terrorism in the region and the spread of Islamic fundamentalism in the world, which this resistance called out back in before 9/11. The Iranian Resistance published a book back in, I was still in high school, so it was in like 1996 or 1997. It said, Islamic fundamentalism, the new global threat. This book was published and no one took it seriously until 2011, when the 9/11 happened. Everyone was like, oh, sorry, 2001, when 9/11 happened, everyone was like, oh, so someone had said this before, and then they started publishing the book again and everything. I was like, well, we warned you. No one took it
Yeah.
seriously. But this is the threat of this regime and the role that it's playing. And
Yeah.
so I think that I hope this time it doesn't take the world another, 20 years to understand. But I think that we've reached a point that the Iranian people have taken their future into their own hands. So that's
Yeah.
one of the narratives that the regime is feeding. There's another narrative that's being fed, is that the people of Iran are stuck between choosing the current dictatorship, which is a religious theocracy, which is, it's a more complex type of dictatorship because it has an ideology behind it,
Uh-huh.
or they have to go back to what it was under the Shah, which was also a
Okay.
dictatorship with the Savak and one-party rule. And I am the Shah used to say, I am the shadow of God on earth, or something like that. I'm the chosen
Okay.
one. So
Okay.
it's the same principles, right? I mean, the fact that you actually say, someone has, some kind of a divine right to rule over a nation. I
That's
just don't understand, like, based on what, like, bloodline, what is so special about you. But anyways, so people are like, you have to go back to that. I'm like, no, we don't have to go back in time. I've never heard a dictatorship be recycled before. It's not going to happen in Iran. It has never happened anywhere else. We want to
Yeah.
move forward to a democratic republic, a secular democratic republic. I think this is something that we can all agree on. So, but that is being fed a lot in the media, and there are those who have their interest in the return of the monarchy. But unfortunately, you have to understand, like, for instance, if you, as I said, just don't look at it on the surface, go a bit deeper. So this guy comes and says, the people of Iran have asked me to lead. And, well, first of all, the first 10 days of this uprising, you were still on vacation. You didn't cut your winter vacation short for the uprisings. So I don't understand. The people were protesting themselves, and they led it to this point. You stepped in on day 10 with a message that, and then you're saying, oh, people came to the streets because of me. No, they were in the streets before you came back from your vacation, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, for instance, there's a video, actually. He did an interview last year, and he says, I'm not willing to sacrifice my own freedom for the freedom of the people of Iran. And well, these people on the streets are sacrificing their lives for the freedom of their people.
Yeah.
How can you lead people who are sacrificing a lot more than you are? That's not what a leader means. It just, it just doesn't fit the, characteristics. But the other thing is that when pushed, into this question to the West, he says, we want a democracy in Iran, and I'm just, provisional, I'll be there or whatnot. But based on what merits? Either you say, I am returning because I am the rightful monarch, which, well, if your merit is the fact that you're your dad's son, he was thrown out by the people of Iran. So that chapter has been closed. If you're running on your own merits, well, you need to have, like, some kind of a resume. You haven't worked one day in your life. You've never been able to organize a group of even 20 people for 6 months. How can you run a country? And then you have no organizational structure either. So how are you supposed to run a country, like, by yourself? Because you don't have an organizational structure, and you don't have any resume. And what makes you fit for that leadership role? But these are things that maybe, people see, like, these images that are being presented from, like, Iran back during the Shah's time. People were free. I'm sorry, but if you've seen pictures from Tehran, like, a few months ago, just imagine, like, in a few years, people will be like, look how free people were in Iran. And you're like, no, that's Instagram. That's not reality of life. And that's the same thing. These rosy images of the Shah. I mean, unfortunately, there was shanty towns in Iran. And at a time that he was, having his 2,500-year celebrations, or, there were political prisoners, there were executions. Unfortunately, if you look at the 1976 report from Amnesty, Iran was the #1 country in execution and torture. back then.
Oh.
Today, Iran is the #1 country in execution and torture again. So it's the continuation of the same thing. Yes, it's severely worse under the mullahs, but you don't have to choose between bad and worse. We can move forward in the 21st century and have people's sovereignty. And that is what we're trying to promote. Unfortunately, we're seeing, these people who actually are falling for this, narrative. The supporters of the Shah, like you see them, like you see how they're acting on the ground right now. These, unfortunately, in the past 3 weeks, we've seen them bullying people. We've seen them. I mean, we were used to seeing it online, but we knew that it was half of it was like a cyber army and whatnot, so people didn't pay that much attention to it. But unfortunately, now we're seeing them actually beating people on the streets just because they don't see eye to eye with you. And I mean, if you're doing this now, just imagine what you would do if you were in power. Because so even Khomeini, who was this bloodthirsty dictator, before arriving, he said, I believe in solidarity. We should respect everyone's rights. And when we go to Iran, I don't want power. I'm gonna go to Qom, which is like a religious city. I'm gonna continue my studies. And he was like, I'm just a father figure, and that's why I'm coming, or whatnot. So this is what his narrative before killing people by the thousands. You are already giving death sentences for people. I mean, that's like, I'm sorry, but I've been seeing like these messages like, make Savak great again. Like Savak 2.0 is becoming revival of the Savak. I'm like, do you understand what the Savak was? Do you understand the crimes they perpetrated? Do you understand, this, having that understanding? But I think that people in Iran, the reason that they have this trust that they can make this happen is because they rest assured that there is a organized resistance movement that has passed the test of time. That's really key because, like, for instance, the NCRI has a plan for a 6-month interim government, and then there's the constitutional the writing of the constitution, which is done by a elected group of people, which is national elections based on that. And then there's free elections under the UN mandate, and to make sure that it's people's will really being presented. And well, first of all, it's been written for decades now. But the other thing is that in the past 4 decades, first of all, this parliament in exile, which is like 500 people representing different ethnicities, different religious minorities, different political ideologies, they've all come together and they've been able to work together for 44 years now. When they say, like, for instance, we believe in women's empowerment and equality, well, the president-elect of this parliament in exile for the interim government is a woman, and 52% of the parliament are women. That speaks volumes, on its own. And they were like, this movement has been the main victim of the regime's atrocities. Unfortunately, as I said, 120,000 people have been killed, but they are the ones who have stated, Mrs. Rajavi, and she has a 10-point plan, which is like a roadmap. Many call it like Jeffersonian. Over 5,000 lawmakers internationally support it, and over 130 former heads of state support this plan. Over 80 Nobel Prize winners and things like that. So a lot of elites support this and have looked at it and have analyzed it. But she says, we need to have, first of all, rule of law, people's sovereignty, free elections, people's freedoms need to be guaranteed. But she says, abolishment of the death penalty and all forms of torture. For Iran, that's really important because it would be justified for her to say, okay, there will be a phase that we're going to, deal with those who are currently in power who have committed these many crimes, and then we'll talk about that. But she says, no. We need to put an end to this cycle of death and executions and torture. It needs to be abolished in all shapes and forms of it. She says, as I said, like women's equality. Well, the leadership council of the Iranian Resistance is all female, and
Yeah.
it's been that way for over 30 years. So I mean, in practice, this movement has been led by women, and that's why you see women are in the forefront in the protests in Iran, because this movement has broken so many glass ceilings in this process.
Yeah.
Women
Yeah.
in Iran feel empowered, like I can do anything, because they see it in front of them that these women have
Mhm.
accomplished things that no one thought would be possible. And I think that like they believe in a non-nuclear Iran, the fact that Iran that needs to be in peace and, you know,
Yeah.
with all its neighbors and the world, and also to be a stabilizing force in the Middle East, not the destructive force in the Middle East. So I think that each point of it, when you go into it, there's so much in it, and it's so
Yeah.
deep that it really shows that roadmap that, hey, if we stick to this, we can actually see that bright future ahead of us in a very short period of time. And I think also the fact that you see that dedication. Like I know people in this movement who, like Mrs. Rajavi herself, who is the
Uh,
president-elect, she joined this movement as a student activist when she was 19
wow.
during the Shah's time.
Okay.
Two of her sisters have been killed. One was killed by the Savak during the Shah's time, and another,
Mhm.
she was actually pregnant, but she was still killed by the regime in 1983. Um,
Oh my God.
and but look, since 19 till now,
Yeah.
she has been in this movement, and now she's, you know, that is, over 50 years of, like practically
Yeah.
50 years of dedication. So if she was after power, if she wanted, something, she could, there were other ways of being able to
Yeah.
reach that. Especially because, I mean, she's already in the top 100 women, like leaders in the world, in different newspapers and magazines and everything throughout the years. But she
Mhm.
has always led with self-sacrifice. And what's important is, like, from day one, she was never after being like the one superstar of this movement. She's
Uh,
always reached her hand out to every woman and like
yeah.
taught them how to, be able to persevere and continue. And so she's created like a whole, not even one generation of female leaders who are capable and have that, that's strength to be able to continue. And I think
Mhm.
that is something that is really unprecedented. So at a time when I remember, she has a motto, she says, "We can and we must." And that is something,
Yeah.
like I was 12 when she said that. But even in my
Yeah.
personal life, or even when I was in school, like in high school, I was like, something was hard. I was like, nope, she says we can and we must, so we can and we must. And so that
Yeah.
always, pushed me forward. But she has done that for like thousands and thousands of women, both Iranian
Yeah.
and those who have learned about her or know her. Um, and I think that she has set a precedent. The fact that we've had female hegemony in this movement since 1993.
Uh-huh.
I remember back in 1996, it was the first conference of on women's status of women in
Okay.
Beijing back then, and
Yeah.
at that time, like it was you know, the fact that the slogan came out that women's rights are human rights, that was supposed to be like something that was really progressive at that time. At that
Yeah.
time, they already had female leadership in the entirety of this movement. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that in itself, I think the test of time is really important, and to be able to look at that. I know that there are some people who, like, these days they're asking, like, especially people who know us,
Mhm.
they're like, well, why aren't we hearing your name? And I was like, well, that's where we differ. We are
Yeah.
concentrated on what to do to make sure that this revolution, this uprising continues, how we can help
Yeah.
those underground and make sure that it continues. There are others who are after, you know, going from one television interview to another to be able
Yeah.
to, come in,
Yeah.
come in and be like, yeah, I'm the leader of this movement. The leader leads. It doesn't need name recognition. It needs to be able
Yeah.
to concentrate. And so, that is, I think, but the reality is that revolutions don't happen overnight.
Right.
Even the Shah, when he was overthrown, it took about 18 months. But the minute that the Shah
Okay.
stopped execution and torture, 18 months later, he was overthrown. He did kill in the streets. I mean,
Uh-huh.
even in just one demonstration on September 8th, 1978, he had 1,000 people killed in the streets in just one place in Tehran. Um,
Hmm.
and so that's how he was trying to keep his control. But everyone knew that
Yeah.
if you get arrested in the protest, you're not going to be tortured and you're not going to be executed. So that's, that made them come to the streets and
Yeah.
take that risk. Today, but still that took 18 months back then. Right now, we understand that it's not going to happen within a few days. It's a whole process that we've been seeing it evolved in the last 10 years. But I think that today we are closer than ever and we can see it
Yeah.
in the very near future. But we need to understand that we need to, it's going to take a process. Unfortunately, it's not, a movie. It's not going to be like, yeah, okay, overnight,
Yeah.
this Khomeini is going to go. It's not going to be that way. We have to pay the price for it. And I think that as one of our friends, one of the members of the Ukrainian parliament was talking to me and she said, you know what it is? You guys are like runners. There are some people
Hmm.
who run a sprint, but there are some who
Yeah.
are marathon runners. You guys are running that marathon. Not everyone who can run a sprint is able to run a marathon. But what's
Yeah.
important is that continuation and the fact that you guys pay the price and never give in and never give up, and that continuation and that um, marathon is the key right
Hmm.
now today.
Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea that there was so much female involvement. So that's really cool to learn about. And then also the fact that you guys have been working on this for so long, like a lot of you your whole lives before you were adults. It sounds like a very solid option. I mean, it's amazing to think about just living this your whole life. One thing after another. And um I just I hope that you guys are successful. And um I hope that people can kind of understand the situation. And yeah, I was just talking to my dad today about our interview coming up, and he's like, I heard they want the Shaw back. And so it's interesting to hear how that news does come back here. And I was like, well, I'll ask her. And so now I've got my answer on that.
Yeah.
But
I think
yeah.
that there's a saying in Farsi. We say it's always darkest before dawn type of
Hmm.
thing. So they say, but at the end of every dark night, there's always a dawn.
Yeah.
So we understand that, yeah, the whole process, it is difficult. There are times that you just keep on saying, like, how can this continue this way? And as you said, it isn't that easy. I mean, there have been so many ups and downs and obstacles, and you know, unfortunately, there have been so many um, blows along the way.
Yeah.
But to
Yeah.
continue that and continue and still stay steadfast, I think that's what's important. Um, and as you said, yeah, I think that, I mean, right now I guess I'm considered the third generation that's in like
Yeah.
this fight. Um,
Yeah.
but like I saw my parents in front of me. I mean,
Hmm.
my parents came to the US before the revolution, so they were as students. They could have easily said, okay, well, we're here now. Let's just concentrate on our own lives. But
Right.
in 1981, when the executions began in Iran, they couldn't. They couldn't close their eyes on that situation. Um,
Yeah.
there were days that the regime would execute children as young as 13 and entire families. I actually know entire families. Like, there's only one sole survivor from that family
Oh.
who've been killed, or like, people that have lost like 13, 14 members of like one family or whatnot, or like mothers who had to bury their own children in their yard because the regime wouldn't even allow them to have like a burial ceremony after executing their children. And for me, one of the things that's really devastating these days is that I see that repeating itself.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, exactly the things that we heard about the 1980s are happening exactly again.
Yeah.
Like, they're charging families for the bullets used. They used to do that in the
Oh my
1980s.
oh my
In the 1980s, they
gosh.
used to print pictures of, children who had been executed with this title, "Would the parents of these children come and identify their bodies, because we don't even know their names." We actually still have copies of that newspaper. And today, the regime is doing the same thing. I don't know if you've seen these videos from the morgue, that there's a screen, and then it
Uh-huh.
has like the individual pictures of each of these people who've been killed. And there's
Yeah.
like a whole bunch of families just standing out there looking at the screen to see, is the next one going to be their child? Or
Oh
the
my
fact that they have
gosh.
to go, among bodies on top of one another and try to identify their children. This is exactly
Yeah.
the mass graves that the Khomeini created in 1988 that still exists. Khavaran is known as like one of the greatest mass graves in Iran, but it's
Yeah.
been bulldozed over to try to erase all traces. But we're seeing it repeat again. Just
Yeah.
yesterday, there was a call from Iran. Someone actually had filmed it, and then they got connected for like a minute. They just sent that out. But
Yeah.
it shows four, um, not just like normal trucks, like these huge, like the trucks that you use for transfer of goods,
Oh,
huge
okay.
trucks.
Okay. Yeah,
Like
like a
four
utility
trucks
truck. Yeah.
coming in with bodies that they
Oh my
gathered
gosh.
from off the street or whatever, and bringing it to the site for families to come and identify their children's bodies. But back in the 1980s, a lot of the prisoners would have testified to this, that they used to take the bodies in trucks and food trucks after they had been killed, and like
Mm-hmm.
trucks full of, and then there would be, if you followed, there was a trail of like blood after these trucks, and no one believed it. No one believed that. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, I mean, okay, there were a lot, but you guys are just exaggerating a bit. But now they're seeing it with their own eyes. I
Yeah.
know people who, like, they were teens, like 16, 15, when they were in prison in 1981 for taking part in peaceful protest. And they remember counting the bullets at every night of the people being executed, counting up to 200, 300 every night in every prison. We're
Oh
seeing it
my
now repeating.
gosh.
So I think that maybe I keep on thinking there must be like some kind of lesson to this. I mean, the fact
Yeah.
that it's repeating itself, but I think that back then that was the only way that the regime was able to keep itself afloat. This time, people have that experience. They know that that happened, so they're reacting differently. They know, like, this is all being done as psychological torture for the families.
Mm-hmm.
They have that understanding, so they're like, this is not going to take me inside the house. This is going to just increase my rage toward this regime, and the fact that I need to be more dedicated to this fight and to overthrow this regime, because otherwise this
Yeah.
cycle is never going to end. And
Yeah.
from the previous generations, like, even a lot of families, like, for instance, especially when they lost one of their children, they would try to just safeguard the rest of the family to make sure that they're not active. They would
Yeah.
keep their children away from being active, because they're like, look, we've already paid the price. Now they're like,
Yeah.
no, since we paid the price, that brings on a responsibility that we need to continue it. And
Yep.
I think that's
Yeah.
the difference today. Because I mean, I see it within even my own family. I mean, my aunt and cousins, or a lot of our family, they say, well, our family has already paid its price. Let
Yeah.
us live in peace for now. Or I'm the only, like, I'm the exception to that rule, maybe. And that
Yeah.
I decided, I was like, no, because I have that experience, that brings on a responsibility. I actually have to do something for my people, because I had yeah, even though my father was killed, I always considered myself to be one of the lucky ones, because I've never had to live under the rule of this regime. I didn't have to
Right.
suffer from that. So I felt like, if I'm living here, what is my responsibility? I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that really um, changed my lens of how I look at things in the world.
Yeah.
And I came to grasp the reality of, what is happening in the world at a very young age. I mean, when you hear, when I found out that my father had been killed, I found out that day, like, a lot of other people that I knew had also been killed.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that, you know, even as a 7-year-old, I was like, so what are you going to do about it? You know, um,
Yeah.
don't, first of all, like, my first reaction was, because of my little brother, my mom told me, please don't cry, because if he sees you crying, he's going to know something's wrong. And my
Yeah.
mom was trying to not to tell my brother what had happened. Um, my brother thought that my dad used to travel a lot because he was a writer and because of his work.
Oh,
So he actually thought that my dad was traveling. And so
okay.
in Farsi, the word for heaven is Behesh. So he thought that was a city next to Brussels, probably, or Belgium, because he had heard
Oh.
these cities a lot. So he was like, oh, my dad, he's traveling. That's where he is.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking to myself that, look, um, crying is not going to solve any issues. It'll just make
Mhm.
Khomeini happier, because that's what he wants. He wants you to just,
Yeah.
lose hope. So you can't do that.
Yeah.
You need to be strong. And I mean, that was my mentality at the age of 7. But thousands of people across Iran have been doing that, that
Mhm.
defiance that we see in Iran society, that defiance that you see in the women of Iran, that everyone, I think, in 2022 was in awe of, these
Yeah.
women in Iran who are so brave or whatnot. Even today in the protests, women played a major role in these protests, and you could see them leading. Um, I think that all comes from that collective experience that this we've had. Maybe not
Yeah.
everyone has experienced it personally, but they've seen the impact on society, and it leaves its footprint, right? It's not something to
Yeah.
be lost. It doesn't go away. So I think that we're seeing it flourish now, and I think that that is exactly what the regime fears, because they
Yeah.
realize that people have learned their lessons from history. They're not going to let it repeat, and so this time the days of the regime are truly numbered.
Yeah. Yeah. I really hope so. I'm gonna be thinking about you a lot. Is there anything that you want the audience to know?
Well, if you mean like in call to action type of way,
Yeah.
there are a
Yeah.
few
Yeah.
things that people can do. First
Okay.
of all, my request from everyone is to try to keep yourself informed.
Yeah.
There are sources that you can rely on, so check those out. The National Council of Resistance of Iran does have a website that you could go, and they have statements and things on
Mhm.
their daily. It's ncr-iran.org.
Okay.
But also, if you're in the US and you want to become active with, the Iranian American communities, there have about
Mhm.
like chapters in 40 different states. So you could reach out to OIAC, it's oiac.org. Reach out
Okay.
to them. They could put you in contact with their, local chapters and inform you of the activities that they have. If you're in Europe, you could reach out to iranfreedom.org, and they could do that too. And to learn more about Maryam Rajavi, I think there's a great website. It's Maryam Rajavi for Change, the number 4, right? So Maryam
Okay.
Rajavi, that number 4 change.com, that you can learn more about her views and what she stands for. But right now there are a lot of like different uh, demonstrations, rallies, things like that, um, in regards to Iran. So please take part. Um, Understand like the messaging of the people on in Iran, which is, you know, as we said,
Mhm.
I mean, moving forward to they want a secular democratic republic. So one of the slogans that we're seeing a lot of, and a lot of posters, actually, I've been seeing a lot of posters in different protests in the past,
Yeah.
especially in the past 10 days, everywhere around the world, that they're saying like they have signs that says no Shah, no mullahs, democracy,
Yeah.
freedom. So I think that is like the key message. So those are telltale signs. So if you see a protest that they have pictures of the Shah, stay away from that. Um, but yeah, I think that reach out to your lawmakers, ask them to, for the things that we said, the basics. It's
Mhm.
reconnect the communication lines for the people of Iran, recognize their right to resist, and hold the regime accountable for these crimes. I think those are very key, and they could really make a major impact. I mean, understand that the people of Iran don't want foreign intervention, but they do want a firm stance. That balance, that's really important. I think for anyone who, no matter what angle you're entering from, I think that this is something that everyone knows that it's to their benefit this way. Because I mean, no one wants to get into another war, but also no one wants to impose that, I think, on a nation, not knowing what the aftermath will be. So I think it's time to stand by the people of Iran, and we hope that we will have good news soon for Iran and for the world. I don't know when exactly this will be aired, but on the 7th of February, there's going to be a huge rally, actually right now organized in Berlin. It'll be the 1 month mark of the actual massacre that's happening right now in Iran, but also it's the anniversary of the 1979 revolution. So people are coming together with this joint message. It'll be broadcast live on social media too, for those who want to tune in. But also those who are in Europe, they're more than welcome to come, or if they want to, they're from different countries or different cities. If they reach out to iranfreedom.org, they can put them in contact with the different organizations who are putting this together. So we hope that we could echo the voice of the people inside of Iran and send a strong message to them in these difficult times.
I will put all the links in the episode notes that you gave me so that the listeners can find it.
It was really nice meeting you. And I look forward to staying in contact. I mean, aside from the podcast, I mean, in general. But thank you for this opportunity. And, we're grateful for anyone who echoes the voice of the people right now.
Yes, absolutely. And I would love to keep in touch and just see how everything's going. So I will do that.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much.